Today, we're jumping into a full-blown detective story. But the mystery isn't about a person, it's about the mind of a machine. We're going to go undercover and investigate whether the AI systems that can see and describe our world are actually reasoning, or if they're just pulling off a really clever magic trick. So, to kick off our investigation, I have a kind of a strange question for you. Can a horse do math? It sounds crazy, but a little over 100 years ago, pretty much the whole world was convinced the answer to that question was yes. Everyone meet Clever Hans. His owner would ask him a math problem, something like, "Hey Hans, what's 2 plus 3?" And Hans would tap his hoof 5 times. He could add, he could subtract, he could even deal with fractions. Seriously, he became this huge international celebrity. He seemed like a total genius, but he was hiding a secret. Well, a psychologist named Oscar Funkst got a little suspicious and decided to investigate. And what he found was incredible. Hans wasn't doing math at all. He was just an expert at reading people. He'd start tapping his hoof, right? And he'd watch the person who asked the question. As he got closer to the right number, they'd get a little tense, a little excited, and as soon as he hit the correct answer, they'd relax. That was his signal to stop. So he wasn't reasoning, he was just reacting to these tiny, unintentional clues. And that, right there, brings us to the heart of our mystery today. What if our most advanced AI models, the ones that are supposed to be able to look at a picture and answer questions about it, what if they're just modern-day clever Hanses? What if they're not really understanding what they see, but are just finding these subtle patterns and shortcuts in the data to trick us into thinking they do? So, okay, how in the world could an AI cheat? Well, our first clue is in the evidence, the data that they're trained on. See, these massive data sets, they're filled with images and questions, but they can have these hidden biases that a clever AI can totally exploit. Let's look at a really classic example from the research. Imagine an AI is trained on a bunch of photos where most of the questions that have the word ground in them are pictures of winter scenes. Well, the AI learns a really simple shortcut. It doesn't even have to look at the image and figure out, oh, that's white, fluffy stuff. It just learns a rule. If the question has ground in it, the answer is probably snow. It gets the right answer, but for completely wrong reasons. And this is the exact same clever Hans problem, just for the digital age. If these AI models can just rely on shortcuts like this, then we have no idea if they're actually doing any real visual reasoning. We just can't be sure if they get what's in the picture or if they're just amazing at finding statistical patterns in the test itself. So, to crack this case, researchers from Stanford and Facebook AI Research realized they needed a better test, a totally uncheatable test. You can think of it like a clean, controlled interrogation room for an AI, a place where all those usual shortcuts and biases are just stripped away. And they called it CLEVR. Now, what's so interesting about what you're seeing here is actually what's not here. There's no messy background, no weird lighting, none of the clutter you see in the real world. This entire clever world is synthetic. It's built from the ground up to be perfectly, totally controlled. And the only things that live in this world are super simple. There are only 3 shapes: spheres, cubes, and cylinders. They come in 2 sizes, big or small, 2 materials, shiny metal or matte rubber, and 8 different colors. And that's it. This keeps the vision part of the problem simple so we can focus entirely on the reasoning part. And this whole setup just perfectly illustrates the point. By controlling every single variable, the objects, their properties, the questions asked, you create a place where all the old tricks just don't work anymore. The AI can't lean on real-world biases because, well, this isn't the real world. It's like a gym, custom built to isolate and test an AI's reasoning muscles. So to be official about it, CLVR stands for Compositional Language and Elementary Visual Reasoning. And the name itself is, of course, a little nod to our friend Clever Hans. It's a diagnostic tool designed for one reason: to figure out what these AI models can't do, and maybe more importantly, what they can't do when it comes to reasoning. All right, so the stage is set, the AI is in our interrogation room, the uncheatable test is about to begin. So, what did the researchers find? This is where our detective story gets really good, because under questioning, the AI started to confess some pretty major weaknesses. The failures really boil down to 3 main areas. First, a pretty shocking lack of short-term memory. Second, a really basic misunderstanding of where things are in space. And third, and this is a big one, a failure of something called compositional generalization, which is like a cornerstone of intelligence. Let's break down the evidence for each. First on the docket, memory. Now, to answer a question like this, a system has to do a couple of things. First, it's got to identify the metal cylinder and its size. Then it has to find the large brown cube and its size. And the really crucial part is it has to hold that first piece of information in its memory while it finds the second one, and then compare them.
So how did they do? Well, humans get this right over 92% of the time. Easy. But the AI, it scored around 50%. And for a yes or no question, 50% isn't just a failing grade. It's literally a coin flip. The AI is just guessing.
So the big takeaway here is this. These models, even the really sophisticated ones that have what we call attention mechanisms, they just couldn't do this super basic task. They're fine at identifying the properties of one object at a time, but they just don't have the short-term memory to hold two things in their head at once to do a simple comparison. Next up, spatial reasoning. The investigation found that AIs used another one of these clever shortcuts here. When you ask them where an object is, they don't really get what left of or behind means. Instead, what they do is they map everything to absolute coordinates, like, oh, that's in the top left corner, or that's in the bottom right quadrant of the image. It works some of the time, sure, but it's not real spatial understanding. It's just another clever Hans trick. But honestly, the most damning piece of evidence came from the test of compositional generalization. This is basically the ability to take concepts you know and combine them in new ways. So to test this, the researchers trained the AI on a special version of CLEVR where they enforced a specific rule. All cubes were only blue or yellow, and all cylinders were only red or green. Okay, so think about this. The model has seen red things before, cylinders, and it's seen cubes before, blue and yellow ones. But it has never, ever seen a red cube. So the million-dollar question is, has it actually learned the separate concepts of red and cube? Or has it just memorized what a blue cube looks like and what a yellow cube looks like? What happens when we break the rule? The results were pretty staggering. When they asked the AI about a combo it had seen before, like a blue cube, it was 85% accurate. Pretty good. But when they asked it about the color of that brand new red cube, its accuracy just plummeted to 51%. Another coin flip. It was just guessing again. And this brings us to our final verdict. The evidence is pretty clear. The AI hadn't learned the concept of cube and the concept of red as two separate reusable ideas. It had just memorized blue cube and yellow cube as single giant patterns. It completely failed at combining its knowledge in a new way, which is a skill that is absolutely fundamental to human intelligence. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, so the AI is bad with some virtual blocks. Who cares? But these failures in this super simple, clean world, they actually point to massive, massive challenges for AI in our messy, complicated real world. I mean, think about it. We need self-driving cars that can reason about a crazy situation on the road they've never seen before. We need medical AI that can combine different symptoms in a new way to make the right diagnosis. And even though this research is from a few years ago, these exact same challenges of memory and true compositionality are still huge hurdles for even the most advanced AI systems we have today. If we don't solve them, we're going to get systems that are brittle, unreliable, and honestly, potentially dangerous. The CLVR investigation didn't just expose the AI's secrets, it gave researchers a clear roadmap of what they needed to fix. It really shows that while we've definitely built an AI that can see, the challenge of building one that can truly understand, well, that's the mystery we still need to solve. Thanks for tuning in.